During a party, I teased my husband saying, "Sit and be quiet," but he got really upset. Hello, Reddit. This is my first time posting, so please bear with me. I hope I'm doing this right because I really don't know where else to turn. I'm feeling confused and trapped in a situation that's entirely my fault. I know I've made a mistake I deeply regret, and I'm scared it's going to cost me my marriage. I don't want to lose my husband over this. I love him, and I know I messed up. But at the same time, I can't help but feel like he's overreacting. I've tried every way I know to talk to him, but he's not willing to listen. So I thought maybe if I wrote everything down and shared it here, I could get some unbiased advice. Honestly, part of me hopes I can show him this post, or even just some of the comments, to prove that I'm not the only one who thinks he might be blowing things out of proportion. Maybe hearing it from random strangers on the internet will help him see things differently. For the sake of privacy, let's call me Emily and my husband Ethan. Ethan and I have been married for about 3 years, but we've been together since college. Ethan is an amazing husband. He's the type of man who goes out of his way to make sure I'm happy, comfortable, and cared for. He's thoughtful, considerate, and genuinely one of the kindest people I've ever known. I've never doubted for a second how much he loves me, and that's why this whole situation hurts so much. I fear that this problem we're having, this massive wedge that's suddenly come between us, is entirely my fault. I don't know how to fix it, and I'm terrified I might lose him because of my own stupidity. So for context, after Ethan and I had been married for about a year or so, I made a decision that changed a lot about my life. I decided to quit my job to focus on being a stay-at-home wife. It was a decision we talked about and agreed on together. We had this plan that after our 4th year of marriage, we'd start trying for kids, and I wanted to use the time leading up to that to get used to the idea of being a stay-at-home wife and eventually a stay-at-home mom. If I'm being honest, quitting my job was a dream come true for me. I've always wanted to have the kind of life where I didn't have to work and could just focus on home and family. So the day I handed in my resignation was a really big deal for me. I felt like I was stepping into this ideal version of the life I'd always imagined. At first, it was amazing. I loved the freedom of not having to wake up early for work or deal with the daily grind of office life. I felt like I had all the time in the world to focus on myself, my marriage, and my home. Ethan was super supportive too. He never once made me feel like I was freeloading or that I had to justify my choice. He's always been the kind of man who believes in taking care of his family, and he was happy to support me financially. But here's the thing no one really tells you about being a stay-at-home wife, especially if you don't have kids yet. You end up with a ridiculous amount of free time. At first, it feels like a blessing. You get to sleep in, binge watch shows, try out new recipes, and maybe even pick up a hobby or two. But after a while, that novelty wears off. It didn't take long before I started feeling bored, like really bored. Ethan works full-time, and while he's always tried to make time for me, I quickly realized how much of my day I had to fill on my own. The house can only be cleaned so many times, and there are only so many shows you can watch before you start feeling restless. That's when I started hanging out more with an old friend of mine. Let's call her Sarah. Sarah and I had been close in college, but drifted apart a bit after graduation. She reached out not long after I quit my job, and we started spending a lot of time together. Sarah is one of those people who's always on the go, always meeting new people, and always has something fun planned. It was through Sarah that I got introduced to a new group of friends. At first, it was just casual hangouts, grabbing lunch, going shopping, or maybe a coffee date here and there. It felt nice to reconnect with Sarah and meet some new people. But eventually, I found myself spending more and more time with this group. They were fun, loud, and always up for a good time. They made me feel like I wasn't just some bored housewife sitting at home, waiting for her husband to come back from work. They filled a gap in my life that I hadn't even realized was there. But as time went on, I started noticing something about this group of friends. They weren't just outspoken or opinionated. They were intense. They described themselves as feminists, but honestly, I don't think that label quite fits. They were more like hardcore misandrists. They didn't just advocate for women's rights, they seemed to actively dislike, if not outright hate, men. They would always make these sweeping, negative generalizations about men, calling them lazy, controlling, or useless. It was like every conversation somehow circled back to how men were the problem in one way or another. And they weren't shy about it either. They were loud and proud, always vocalizing their opinions at every opportunity. At first, I didn't think much of it. I figured everyone was entitled to their opinions, and it wasn't like I was going to let their beliefs dictate how I lived my life. But as I spent more time with them, I realized there was an unspoken expectation. If you wanted to be part of their circle, you had to share their views. They didn't outright say it, but they made it pretty clear. There were snide comments and passive-aggressive remarks whenever someone disagreed or didn't jump on the bandwagon. And honestly, I didn't want to lose these friends. Hanging out with them had become a regular part of my routine. We'd go out for drinks, have brunches, and even plan little outings. It gave me something to look forward to during the week, something that was just for me. Especially since Ethan was so busy with work, I needed that social connection. At first, I thought it was a good thing. I was filling up my days and having fun. But the more time I spent with them, the more I realized I was bending to fit into their mold. When they found out I was married, I could tell they were disappointed. They didn't say anything outright, but their reactions said it all. Raised eyebrows, pursed lips, and a slightly awkward change in the conversation. I didn't want to feel like an outsider, so I improvised. I told them I was married, but that I was still a hardcore feminist just like them. I said I shared their views and wasn't a fan of men. I painted a picture of my marriage that wasn't entirely true. I told them I called all the shots in our relationship, that I was the one who made all the decisions. I joked that I was practically the man of the house, and that everything Ethan did was subject to my approval. I don't know why I said those things. Maybe I wanted to fit in, or maybe I didn't want to risk losing the only real source of fun and connection I had at the time. But in that moment, I chose to misrepresent my relationship with Ethan, and they loved it. When I told them that I was the one who called the shots in my marriage, that Ethan didn't make any decisions without running them by me, and that everything in our home was subject to my approval, they were amazed. One of them even joked that I should teach a class on how to keep men in line. At first, I felt proud and also guilty. I knew it wasn't true. Ethan and I had always made decisions together, and I had never tried to control him or dictate his actions. But seeing their reactions made me feel something I hadn't felt in a long time: validation. They thought I was strong, assertive, and independent, and they admired me for it. Their praise was honestly intoxicating. Suddenly, I wasn't just a bored housewife tagging along with their group. I was someone they looked up to, someone they respected. And the more they admired me, the more I leaned into the lie. I started embellishing stories about my marriage. I convinced myself it was harmless. Ethan wouldn't find out, and what Ethan didn't know wouldn't hurt him. Plus, by keeping up this facade, I got to stay in the group. I became even more integrated into their circle, invited to every event, every outing, every private gathering. It felt good to belong. Well, of course, something we don't always realize is that if you constantly hang out around a group of people with certain values and ideas, over time, you start to absorb those ideas unconsciously, without even knowing it. You might think you're just listening, nodding along, or even disagreeing in your head, but exposure has a way of creeping in. And that was exactly what was happening to me. At first, I thought I could separate their opinions from my reality. I thought I could laugh at their jokes about men being useless and brush off their constant criticism of relationships without letting it affect me. But their influence only grew stronger. Week after week, hangout after hangout, their harsh views started to shape how I viewed Ethan, and men in general. They always talked about how men were dead weight, how they didn't contribute enough in relationships, and how they always needed to be managed like children. It became a recurring theme in their conversations, this constant need to assert dominance and control over their partners. At first, I didn't fully agree with them. I would sit there, nodding along, but thinking, that's not Ethan, though. He's different. But the more I listened, the more their words began to seep into my thoughts. Without realizing it, I started to see Ethan through the same critical lens they used for their partners. Little things that had never bothered me before suddenly felt like glaring faults. If he left a dish in the sink instead of just washing it or asking him to, I'd roll my eyes and think, typical man, can't even clean up after himself. If he left his shoes by the door instead of putting them away, I'd feel a surge of irritation and think, Why is it always my job to pick up after him? When he suggested a way to split chores or plan our budget, I wouldn't even consider it. I'd dismiss his ideas out of hand, telling myself that I knew better, that I was the one keeping this household together. Ethan would come home from work, exhausted but smiling, ready to eat with Mel or watch a show with me. But I'd be too busy texting my friends or planning our next outing to give him the attention he deserved. If he tried to engage me in conversation, I'd give short, distracted answers or wave him off entirely. I justified it to myself by thinking, I deserve this time with my friends. I need this for myself. But in reality, I was pushing him further and further away, all while convincing myself that I wasn't doing anything wrong. After all, wasn't this what my friends had been saying all along? That men didn't need constant attention, that they'd be fine on their own, that we deserved to put ourselves first for once? I guess I knew I was being unfair to Ethan, but I kept brushing it off. I told myself it was fine, just a phase, and that I could stop anytime I wanted. Besides, the lie had worked. I had my friends, I had my fun, and Ethan didn't suspect a thing. Or at least that's what I thought. No. But the truth is, these things have a way of spiraling out of control without you even noticing. My behavior started changing, slowly at first, and then more obviously over time. It crept up on me, so subtly that I didn't even realize it until it was too late. What started as small insults here and there, or casually dismissing Ethan, became more and more overt. I started voicing my newfound criticisms of Ethan publicly, first in small ways, then outright in front of family and friends. At the time, I thought I was just being funny or speaking my mind, and of course, Ethan noticed. I also began to assert control over everything in our relationship. At first, it was also subtle, like insisting on how we spent weekends or managing every aspect of the household, but it grew to the point where I wanted to be in charge of everything. I didn't even notice how demanding I had become or how much I was trying to dominate our dynamic. Ethan brought it up a few times, saying he was worried about me, that I seemed different, and that maybe my new friends were influencing me, but I refused to listen. I brushed him off, told him he was overreacting, or accused him of being scared that he wasn't in control anymore. It was easier to deflect than to face what was really happening. We argued about it several times, but I didn't take his concerns seriously. I told him I wasn't going to give up my friends, and that if he had a problem with that, then it was on him. Everything came to a head at Sarah's birthday party. She had invited our entire friend group and even suggested I bring Ethan along. In hindsight, I wish I had left him at home. If I had known what was going to happen, I never would have brought him. At first, the party was great. It was one of those lively gatherings where everyone felt comfortable letting loose, catching up, and poking fun at one another. Sarah had also invited a few of our old college friends, so Ethan was mingling, chatting, and catching up with people he hadn't seen in years. Meanwhile, I was with my friend group. I don't know why I felt the need to impress them, but I did. I wanted to show them that I was the strong, independent, no-nonsense wife I had painted myself to be. At one point, Ethan and a couple of his friends were standing nearby, engaged in a lighthearted debate about something trivial. Sports, a TV show, maybe trivia, I can't even remember. It wasn't heated, just friendly banter, but I saw an opportunity. I walked over, and in front of my friends I said, "Sit and be quiet, Ethan." My friends erupted into laughter. They thought it was hilarious, but Ethan, he just froze. For a moment he stood there, his face was unreadable, and then he gave me a look. Not anger, not embarrassment, but something I couldn't quite place. Then he turned and walked away. I laughed it off and assumed he'd forget about it later. After all, it was just a joke, right? But as the evening went on, I noticed his mood shift. He became quieter, avoided looking at me, and left the room a couple of times. At first I brushed it off, thinking he was just tired or not feeling well. It all came to a head on the car ride home. The second we were alone, Ethan exploded. He was furious, angrier than I'd ever seen him before. I had thought the car ride would just be a quiet, awkward trip back, but instead it turned into a full-blown argument that I never saw coming. He told me outright that I had humiliated him in front of everyone at the party. He said he couldn't believe I had disrespected him like that. He told me he'd had enough, that this wasn't just about what happened at the party, but about a pattern of behavior he'd noticed for months. A consistent pattern, he said. At first, I tried to defend myself. I told him it was just a joke, that he was overreacting, that it wasn't that deep, but he wasn't having it. He pointed out how he had noticed my behavior changing for a while now, and said it was obvious that my friend group had been influencing me. I knew I had made a little mistake, so I apologized. But at the time, I still didn't fully grasp how deep the issue went. I thought he was overreacting, so I brushed it off as just a joke gone wrong. I told him that's all it was, a joke. But Ethan wasn't buying it. He said there was nothing funny about it and that it was part of a bigger pattern of disrespect that I had been showing for months. Then he asked to see my phone. At first I refused. I was caught off guard, and honestly I panicked. But he was firm. He told me that if I didn't show him my phone, he would pack his things and leave as soon as we got home. He said that if I truly had nothing to hide, then I wouldn't have a problem with it. I felt trapped, so I gave in and handed over my phone. That's when everything came crashing down. He went through the group chat, and of course he saw the messages. He saw all the things my friends and I had said, the comments about men in general, the things I had written about him specifically, and how I had painted myself as the dominant one in our relationship. It was all there in black and white, undeniable and impossible to explain away. That's when he pieced everything together. He was furious. He told me that I had completely disrespected him, not just at the party, but for months now. He said he couldn't believe I had been so careless, so cruel, and so influenced by people who clearly didn't have our best interests at heart. He called me an idiot for allowing myself to be swept up in their mindset and for letting it damage our relationship. When we got home, he went straight to bed and refused to talk to me. The next morning, I tried to talk to him again, but it was like a wall had gone up between us. He wouldn't listen, wouldn't engage, and wouldn't give me a chance to explain myself further. Then he packed a bag and left. It's been a week now, and I've been trying everything to reach him. I've called, texted, and even stopped by his workplace, but he won't respond to me beyond saying he wants a divorce. He's made it clear that he doesn't see a future with someone who could treat him the way I did. He said the party incident was just the last straw, the final push after months of him trying to make things work, while I was too blind to see how much damage I was causing. I don't know what to do. Writing this out has made me realize just how badly I've messed up. I've been selfish, disrespectful, and blind to how my actions were affecting him. I don't want to lose him. I want to show him that I can change, that I am already working on being better. But he won't even give me the chance to prove it. Reddit, I'm desperate. I know this isn't the kind of thing people usually share, and it's not something I would normally post, but I don't know where else to turn. I've ruined my marriage, and I don't know how to fix it. How do I make him see that I'm truly sorry, and that I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make things right? How do I convince him to give me one more chance? Update. Hello, Reddit. When I first made this post, I was already pretty sure that I was in the wrong. I knew it, I acknowledged it, and I was ready to face the reality of the situation. But writing it out and seeing your responses just cemented it even more. You guys did not go easy on me, and honestly, I can't blame you. I deserved every bit of it. The comments, the DMs, they were brutal, harsh, but I needed it. I needed to hear the truth, and I fully agree with everything that was said. I've been an idiot, plain and simple, and I have no excuses for my behavior. If anything, I appreciate the honesty, even if it stung. I wish I could sit here and tell you I have some positive update now that I've had my wake-up call. I wish I could tell you things have taken a turn for the better, but the truth is they haven't. Despite my efforts to apologize to Ethan, to show him that I've changed, it hasn't been enough to change his mind. He's still adamant about getting a divorce. He told me my apologies felt fake, like I was just saying the right things to get him back, and that stung more than I can put into words. He's called me an idiot more than once during all of this, for buying into the toxic nonsense my ex-friends were spouting and for letting it damage our relationship. And honestly, he's not wrong. So, yeah, he wants a divorce, and there's nothing I can do to stop it. A couple of weeks ago, I moved out of the house. It's his house. He owned it before we even got married. So there wasn't much of a discussion about that. I packed up my things and moved in with my sister, which has been well, less than ideal. Living with her has been a constant reminder of how far I've fallen, but I don't have many other options right now. On the bright side, I did finally cut ties with that toxic group of friends. That's one positive thing that's come out of all this. After some reflection, I realized just how much damage they contributed to, not just in my relationship, but in my mindset overall. I sent them a long, well-written message about how their so-called feminism was really just Miss Andry wrapped in a pretty package. I told them how destructive their attitudes were, and how they had contributed to me becoming a person I barely recognize. Then I left the group chat, blocked every single one of them on every platform, and haven't looked back since. Honestly, I should have done that sooner. But cutting them off doesn't change the damage that's already been done. It doesn't erase the things I said to Ethan or the way I treated him. And it doesn't change the fact that I've lost him for good. I don't know what comes next for me. Right now, it's just about surviving day to day and trying to figure out where I go from here. But one thing I know for sure is that I've learned a hard, painful lesson about the kind of person I never want to be again. To everyone who commented or messaged me, thank you for your honesty. Even if it was hard to hear, I needed it. And I'm going to try to use it to rebuild myself into someone better. That's all I can do now. Update. Hello, Reddit. It's been a while since I updated, and honestly, that's because I've been avoiding it. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I just didn't feel like sharing, or maybe I didn't want to face the reality of what I've been going through. But I guess today I need to get it out. So here I am. The truth is, the world doesn't stop just because you've lost the person you thought would be there forever. The world doesn't pause so you can grieve or process what's happening. It keeps moving, and whether you're ready for it or not, you have to move with it. If you don't, you get stuck. And believe me, I don't want to be stuck. So I'm trying my best to keep going, even though everything inside me is telling me to stop. First things first, I got served. Yeah, divorce papers. I mean, I knew it was coming, but somehow it still hits you harder than you expect. I can't really explain how it feels. It's like this weight sitting on my chest, a combination of heartbreak, regret, and disbelief. You know, when emotions are just too complex to put into words? That's exactly it. It's like someone ripped out my heart and stomped on it. But at the same time, I feel numb to it all. It doesn't even feel real. And to make things even more overwhelming, now I have to face reality in a whole new way. I have to find a job. I can't just be a stay-at-home wife anymore. I don't even know where to start. I've been living in my sister's house, and the situation has been horrible. I don't want to complain too much because she's letting me stay with her, but let's be real. It's not easy. I feel like unpaid labor, and I have no choice but to go along with whatever she wants, because I don't have any money of my own. It's humiliating, honestly. I don't want to be in this position, but I don't have a choice. My sister's making sure I have food and a roof over my head, so I can't really say no to the chores she demands. It feels like I'm stuck in a cycle of misery, doing all this work and feeling like I'm not really living. There are days when I feel like my life is just a series of meaningless distractions, just looking for jobs that feel like they're never going to call me back. I'm surviving, but that's all it feels like, surviving. And it sucks. I want more than this. I want to get out of here. I want to stand on my own 2 feet again, but I know it's going to take time, and I don't know how to get through it. So, yeah, I guess that's the update. My life is a mess, and I feel like I'm just trying to hold it all together. But I'm doing my best, even if that's not saying much. I just wanted to share this because it feels like the only place where I can actually express what I'm going through. I don't really have anyone else to talk to about all of this. Update. Hello, Reddit. So, it's been a while, huh? Honestly, I didn't feel like updating for a long time. It's been a bit of a roller coaster, and I guess I was just avoiding facing it all. But here I am, and I'm surprised I even remembered the password to log back in. How's life been for everyone else? I guess I should probably update you on mine, though it's not the most uplifting of news. First things first, the divorce got finalized. Yep, it's official. We're done. There's no going back, no changing his mind, no magical moment where he suddenly forgives me. He's just done with me. And as much as I wish this was some bad dream, it's not. It's real life. I tried, Really tried to hold on to some hope that maybe, just maybe, he'd change his mind, that time would make him realize it was a mistake. But nope, it's over. There's no forgiving me. There's no second chance. There's no redemption. He's moved on, and I'm left to pick up the pieces of my own stupidity. It feels surreal, honestly. So yeah, that's the reality I'm living now. Divorce is finalized, and there's no fixing it. Not that I really expect him to come back, but it still hurts. Second, I'm still at my sister's house. I know. I thought I'd be out by now, but things have just gotten worse. It's gotten to the point where I feel like I'm suffocating. I'm still unpaid labor. I do everything, clean, cook, take care of stuff, and I get nothing in return. It's like my sister expects me to be her personal assistant, but with none of the perks. I feel trapped. The resentment is building, and we don't even talk much anymore. We had an argument, and now, well, we're both avoiding each other. I'm honestly scared she'll kick me out, though I don't even know where I'd go if that happens. The worst part is that I have no choice. I have to go along with whatever she wants. I need a roof over my head, so I can't risk rocking the boat too much. I can't afford my own place right now, so it's either stick it out here or be completely on my own without any real support. The one good thing, if you can call it that, is that I have a job now. It's minimum wage, which sucks, but at least it's something. Honestly, the only reason I'm sticking with it is because it lets me escape. I'm at work more than I should be just to avoid being at home. I take extra shifts whenever I can, just to stay away for as long as possible. It's not a solution, but it's the only one I've got. I've been keeping my working hours to myself, mainly because I know my sister would protest me taking extra shifts. She's always been one to guilt trip me, and I'm not falling for that anymore. The extra shifts are helping, though. The more hours I take, the more money I save up. In a couple of months, I'll hopefully have enough to get out of here. I can't wait for that. I don't care how small the place is or how much it costs. I just need to be out. I need to be on my own. What happened with my marriage, the way I messed everything up, it could have been avoided. If I had just been smarter, if I had thought things through. But I didn't. And now, here I am, stuck with the consequences of my actions. I miss him so much, more than I thought possible. I know I messed up, and I regret it every day. I won't lie, I still check on his social media. I don't know if I'd call it stalking, but I do check in on him from time to time. It's like a mixture of longing and self-punishment. He's doing well, living a great life, got a promotion, which I heard from a friend. I'm honestly glad for him. He deserves that. But it still stings, knowing that he's moving on while I'm stuck in this mess of my own making. It's like the universe is reminding me every single day how much I've lost. So yeah, that's where I am. Things are shitty, and I don't know if they'll get better anytime soon. But I guess the world doesn't stop just because I'm struggling. I have to keep moving. It's not easy, but I'm trying. I just wanted to update you all. If you've read this far, thank you for listening. I don't expect any answers or advice. I just needed to get this off my chest.